Hey, what's going on YouTube? Alright, so I recently bought this 2010 Chevrolet HHR and it's had a phantom coolant leak that I have not been able to find. At first I thought it was the radiator cap not being done up all the way, because basically with this radiator you keep that one completely shut and you top it up via the sort of overflow bottle here. I thought it was that, and I thought I actually fixed the issue, but I left it overnight in my other car spot over there. You can see there's the coolant on the ground. So I came out this morning, I was really disappointed. I was actually going to change the thermostat in this as well. This is sort of a side topic. I was going to change the thermostat because my car has been running very cold. It doesn't really get to operating temperature, and the temperature just keeps sort of dropping, especially when you're going down hills not using any power. The temperature just keeps dropping and dropping down to almost 150 Fahrenheit. So yeah, not good. So I'm going to basically show you. I found the leak, and it appears as though it's coming from the coolant transfer pipe. It's hard to see from the top here where it is. I'll get my flashlight. But essentially the coolant transfer pipe connects to the thermostat housing, which is just down in here. There's the thermostat housing down there. And it connects over to the water pump. I'll show you from underneath. Let's have a look at that. Alright, I don't know if you can see. Let's try and see here where it is. Just up there. It's a bit hard to see. Alright, you see that pipe there with some oil on it? That's the transfer pipe. And it connects into this side over here. Try and get some better light. This torch is too bright for it. Up there. Okay, so on either side you got basically O-rings. You can see the leak there. So the pipe has to come out and the O-rings have to be replaced, and that will hopefully stop the leak. So kind of disappointing. I was really hoping that it was just going to be the radiator cap that was loose, because it was loose and it was leaking a bit out of there. Just get myself up here. So it's a bigger job than I thought, which is a shame. So in either case, the thermostat housing has to come completely out, and there's a few complex sort of bolts at the back there which are hard to get to. You have to basically take the air box off. So I'm going to show you how to do that. We'll take the air box off, and then we'll get down to the back and we'll start undoing some of the stuff at the back there to get that transfer pipe off. Get some new O-rings, put it back on, and fingers crossed it does not leak anymore. Alrighty, let's get to it. I was just going to mention as well that my exhaust manifold gasket appears to be leaking as well. When I do start the engine cold, you can certainly hear an air leak out of that area. And I got my carbon dioxide detector, which I have, a portable one, and I put it near the manifold, and it was leaking or detecting high amounts of carbon monoxide as well. So obviously it's very important to change that, because you don't want carbon monoxide eventually getting into the cabin and killing you slowly. So this job to replace the O-rings on that transfer pipe is going to sort of give me, I'm going to kill a few birds with one stone. I've got to change the thermostat, which I've got a new thermostat as well, so I can show you how to do that. And I'll change the exhaust manifold gasket as well, and that will hopefully yeah, just kill a few birds with the same stone. Alright, first of all, I'm going to take the airbox off. Now I've already kind of destroyed my airbox. You can see I don't even have the air connecting hose anymore to the air intake. I kind of destroyed that, unfortunately. I'm going to basically undo the clamp just down here. Okay, that holds on the rubber intake hose. Once that's off, and then we'll take the other one off and we'll take the airbox out. It basically just sort of pulls away from the little mounting points at the back of the airbox there. No need to undo any screws at all at the back there. Okay, so we're just going to start first of all by undoing the flathead screw here that's on the clamp. Loosen that off. Nice and loose, doesn't have to be completely all the way off. And then under here you're going to see there's a connector for the mass airflow sensor. Make sure you disconnect that. It's just got a little thing you press your thumb into up there and then pull away. Tuck that away somewhere safely, just there. Okay, there's also a clamp just here we're going to undo. Sorry, just there. So once again, get your flathead and undo that one. Okay, and then you're going to basically tug away the rubber hose from the air intake here, and you can also lift up at this stage on the air box at the back here, like I said. It sort of just lifts up like that, like that. Okay, and then you're going to separate the two away. Okay, so there's the air box out. Gives us a bit more access down to the back here. Basically, you're going to have to remove this metal bracket as well that holds the airbox on. I think they're about a 12mm bolt. There's two of those, maybe a 12 or a 14. So we'll undo those. Take that metal bracket out. Okay, so there's the bracket out. Two 14mm bolts, or nuts, I should say. Now with these nuts, I'm going to put them back on here so that I don't lose them. That way they're always there. Okay. Alright, so with that bracket removed, the next thing we're going to do, for at least my job, is we're going to try and get this exhaust manifold off. And we're going to have to remove the heat shield first. So there's I think just one nut you can see there, and then there's the back nut to where the bracket was, which also is part of the actual heat shield. So we're going to get that off. At the same time, we're going to basically drain the coolant system. So at the bottom of your radiator, you're going to find a drain plug. So we're going to open that up. I'll come in here, under here and show you. Alright, there we go. Where are we? All the way back here, I think it is. I don't know if you can see that. Oh, there it is. It's basically just there. It's a bit hard to see. Probably should have my flashlight so you can see it a bit better. But yeah, you're essentially just going to drain the coolant system now. Drain all that out. And then at least we have a coolant system, and it's not going to drain everywhere and damage the environment. So we're going to undo that plug. Hopefully I can get a better angle here for you. Where are we? Yeah, it's a bit hard to see from here. Let's see here. So there it is there. So if you look to the right side of your radiator, if you're facing the front of the car, that's the little petcock you're going to open up to drain your system. Alright, so personally I found it very, very hard to get the actual petcock off the radiator to drain the radiator. So I'm not going to do that. Instead, I'm just going to basically remove the thermostat housing and the pipe and just let it all drain out from there. And then obviously later on I'll top it all back up. So that's what I'm going to do. So once again, got to get this heat shield off the manifold. So we can have a look at that. We'll start off with that first. We'll undo that bolt there, and then these two bolts here. Alright, so here's the heat shield removed. These were 13mm nuts. And there she is. There's the big crack in my exhaust manifold. So that's going to have to be fixed or completely replaced. Alright, finally got the coolant transfer pipe out. This is where your thermostat fits inside there. And then there's a O-ring here. It doesn't look like an O-ring, does it? But it actually is an O-ring. I'm not too sure on the actual part number for that, so I'm going to try and find that out. But it starts off as a circle, and when you place it in there, it makes this sort of oval shape pattern. Here's your coolant transfer pipe that transfers the coolant to the water pump. And I don't know if you can see it, but that is a damaged O-ring. Hence the coolant leak. So there's one this side that connects to the water pump, and then there's another one inside here. So I'm going to go ahead and replace that seal there and the two O-rings, and then that'll be good to put back on. Unfortunately, my heater hoses were so hard to get off that I've had to basically use a Stanley knife to cut them off. And then I'm just going to replace those hoses as well. I'm going to get all that done and then put it back on the car. Should mention as well that there's 3 10mm bolts that hold this onto the actual engine block. So when you're working on it, basically one there, one just under the coolant temperature sensor. If you have a small enough extension and 10mm socket, you should be able to get under there without actually having to remove the coolant temperature sensor. And then there's one long one just here at the bottom. Alright guys and girls, here is my Chevrolet HHR coolant transfer pipe and the thermostat housing out of the car with the O-rings, well, mostly removed anyway. Still the old one on there. See how crappy that is? That was causing my leak. And here's my new seals. Just took a couple of days to come in, special order from AutoZone. There's a 36068 water pipe O-ring. These O-rings aren't cheap. They're at $14 each. You need 2 of them for each end. And then there's this special sort of rectangular shaped gasket as well. That's about $8. And that one goes there, obviously. So, going to put these gaskets on, and then we're going to go back out to the car, put it all back together, and also with a new thermostat. I've just got a Gates brand here, 33943. The old thermostat, I don't know, it's hard to tell whether or not it's actually bad, but I don't know why my car was running so cool. Like, the coolant temperature would just keep dropping. Anyway, so here's the Gates thermostat with a really nice rubber seal on it. So that'll go on there with the new seal as well. That goes in there like that. Actually, no, must be that way. Just like that. And then it goes back on the car. So let's put it all together, put it back on the car, and start her up. Sorry, I'm actually wrong. The thermostat does not go in this way. Thermostat goes in this way. It was just being blocked by this little sort of lip here because I had it in wrong. So kind of you can't get it wrong. If you have it in there the wrong way, it won't go in correctly. So just there like that. Alright guys, so before you put your new thermostat into your vehicle, you want to make sure that it actually works as it is intended. It's designed as it heats up with the radiator fluid, that basically the rubber seal there that's stopping the coolant flowing through from this side to this side, that seal will open up as the temperature increases. There's a special material inside this kind of copper pipe here called paraffin wax, and as it heats up, the spring releases and basically opens up that valve. So what you're going to do is you're going to place it into a pot of water, bring it up towards the boil, and you should start to see this valve open. You'll actually see a gap open up in between here where the rubber seal is. If it doesn't open up and the water's boiling over, it probably means it's a defective thermostat. You can always put in a thermometer as well to test the temperature. But in general, as you start to see bubbles in the actual pot itself, you should start to see that valve open up. And it will actually open up a few, maybe like, I don't know, 5mm or so, maybe even more. And then that is how you test your thermostat before you put it in the vehicle. I've tested it already. Not going to show you exactly how to do it. Just do what I say and make sure it opens up. If not, send it back. By the way, everybody, Happy New Year. I started this job just prior to New Year's, and it's already New Year's, so first day of January 2021. Hope everyone takes care of each other out there. I'm going to put this rectangular gasket on now. This one should be fairly straightforward. Might need a bit of a stretch to get it on. This one's a bit harder to get on though. Yeah. Doesn't seem like it's in. This gasket here is definitely a lot harder to put in. I'll tell you that much. All right, there we go. Very good. It's nice and raised out as well. You might be able to see that. The old gasket that was in there was pretty much flat with the surface. So this one's going to do a really good job. I really hope anyway. Well, it's time to put it back on the car. All right, guys, here we are back at the car. We're going to put back on the thermostat housing and the coolant transfer pipe. Only 3 bolts that go to this housing here. The long ones down the bottom, and then the 2 short ones either side. So I'm basically going to put them back on just finger tight with my fingers first. And yeah, and then we'll put the other side of the thermostat hose back on over the top of the thermostat, and then we'll put in our hoses, which I bought new hoses as well, around about I think $18 a hose. Pretty expensive. You can get them cheaper on Amazon, but I just took the convenience of getting them from AutoZone. Hey, so guys, I've put the thermostat housing all back on now. It was a little bit difficult. I'd suggest putting some sort of like lubricant around the seals. I just put on some like body lotion just around the seals to help them slip in a bit better. Not sure if I mentioned before though that the heater hoses, these are probably the originals. They were stuck on so tight I couldn't get them off, so I ended up cutting them off. And so I'm just cutting the last one off now using a Stanley knife. You might have to do that as well. Obviously try and get them off so you don't have to spend money, but I had to cut them off, so I had to buy 2 brand new hoses here, about $20 each. So just cutting this last hose off now, and then I'll put the new hoses back on. I basically did the thermostat housing bolts up just snug. I mean, I don't have a torque wrench that can go as low as they require. I think they need about 10 Newton meters or so of torque. My one doesn't go that low, so I've just sort of tightened them snug. You want to be careful that it's aluminium, so don't over tighten them. You'll strip the threads. Be very, very careful. Okay, so I've cut off the final hose now, and I'm ready to put on my brand new hoses. For reference, there's one with a smaller outlet compared to the other side. That one is going to go to the small outlet on the top and to the shorter hose just there that connects to the thermostat housing. So we're going to put these on and then continue on with double checking everything, plugging back in the coolant temperature sensor, and basically just going over all my work, making sure everything's done, and then filling up the coolant with new Dexcool. Make sure you're using Dexcool. These engines are very sensitive to the type of coolant you're using. It's an orange color coolant, it's not green like traditional cars use, and it says there on the cap anyway, Dexcool. That's what you need. Alright, got all my new hoses on. I reckon those clamps were probably the hardest part about this whole job. Just getting those clamps on, they're friggin' hard. There's not much like room to put some tools in here. I'm just using some basic needle nose pliers and sort of, I think, bull nose or whatever those are called, to do it. So yeah, it can be pretty hard. Alright, so everything is back on. The 3 bolts that tighten down the thermostat housing are onto the block. The thermostat itself, the 2 10mm sort of nuts or bolts, those are in. Just quickly have a look here at my exhaust repair. You can still kind of see the crack, so I don't know if it's going to work. If not, I think there's a exhaust manifold on Amazon you can buy for about 80 bucks. Probably just end up buying that to replace the exhaust manifold, but fingers crossed that works. Or I may have to buy some new exhaust goo, because it needs like 24 hours to set. So since I was away for the last 2 days, that's kind of set now. I'm going now to put coolant back into the radiator fill sort of section here, and top it back up. I'm going to leave the exhaust heat shield off for the time being, just so I can inspect for any leaks. But the airbox will have to go back on, of course, because the engine won't run unless you've got the mass airflow sensor all hooked up. So yeah, go ahead and do that. You can see on my intake hose, it's pretty brittle. I'm gonna have to probably replace that at some time too, because this looks pretty old and crummy. Anyway, I'm gonna top up the coolant now. Alright, I actually did decide to put back on the heat shield and the airbox bracket at the back, and put obviously the airbox back on. I've tightened up everything, and the reason why I've done that is because I have to first of all jack the car back up so that the front of the car is raised up higher than the back. And the purpose of that is that so when we start up the car, the coolant system will have bubbles in it from when we opened up the system. And so the idea or the purpose is to get those bubbles back out of the system. If you leave bubbles in your coolant system, your coolant system will overheat. So we're going to jack the car up. We're going to take back off the cap here. We're going to turn on our heater to max hot, and also max speed of the fans, and then we're going to start the car up and basically going to burp the system. All the bubbles will start to come out, and then we're going to top up the fluid as the car's running. As the coolant level drops, as those bubbles get released and the coolant fills up the whole system, we're going to need to top that up. I've only got a little bit of coolant left in here. Can't really see how much left, probably about maybe 2 quarts, or just a little bit less than 2 quarts. So hopefully that's enough. Otherwise I'll just top the rest up with tap water essentially. Not ideal, but that's all I've got. I've only got that last bottle left. So let's go ahead and jack the car up and then start her up. Alright, so the car's jacked back up, and I've also put my stands underneath, because if you're going to go under the vehicle, you do not want to be under there with a jack alone. The jack can fail at any time and the car can crush you and kill you. So make sure you get some stands. They're about $50 for 2, so pretty cheap. Alright, everything's back in. Done up my intake hoses, the mass airflow sensor's hooked back up. Thermostat's done up. Coolant temperature sensors back on. Hoses are done up. Airbox is in, obviously. I've cleaned up my work site here. Always double check your work site before you start your vehicle up. You don't want anything stuck in like your drive belt, your serpentine belt or anything like that. Make sure it's all clear. Take your time, don't rush. Oil cap's back on. I didn't really, well, I had to remove that to get the airbox off. But yeah, there's the coolant level where it sits right now. So let's go and start the vehicle up. Fingers crossed. What I'll do is as well is, let's see here. I'm going to just quickly find my ODB sensor tool so I can monitor the coolant temperatures as the car warms up. But first, so I don't forget, come over here, turn your fan on full, right to full, inside the cabin. Okay, let me find my tool and then we'll start her up. Okay, here's my ODB sensor tool. Got this one on Amazon, really cheap, 20 bucks or something like that. These things are invaluable. You'll use them a lot to diagnose any issues with your car, and it basically just plugs in right here like that. Okay, I'm gonna go through and press OK. Oh, ignition has to be on. All right, ignition is on. Waiting for the vehicle to respond. Alright. Codes found? No. 0. If that said codes found 1 or 2, means some part of your car, one of the sensors has tripped off a code, and you'd be able to look into it and find out the actual code and then look up the codes online. You can read the codes and then find out exactly what's wrong. But we're going to go into live data, or data, however you say it, wherever you're from. And we're looking down here at the engine coolant temperature. Essentially, we want the car to warm up quickly, and the thermostat should open about 82 degrees Celsius, or about 180 Fahrenheit. You can press enter, and that will change the units to Fahrenheit. So, I'm going to go ahead and place that just up on here on the dash so I can monitor it closely while I'm also watching and topping up the coolant. Parking brakes on, it's in park, we're good to go. I'm just going to do one last check around the car, make sure there's nothing in the way, nothing dangerous. Okay, should be good to go. Alright, let's start her up. Fingers crossed. Look at my dirty hands. My wife's gonna kill me. Alright. So first of all, I noticed there's no more... Oh, there might be a little bit of an exhaust sound. Definitely not much as before. Alright. You can start to see some bubbles bubbling there. So I'm going to keep an eye on that. I'm going to top up the coolant. So just keep topping up your coolant. You'll see bubbles. You want to burp the system completely. Quite hard to pour the coolant in when this cover's on because it's right over the top, so I end up spilling a lot of coolant. Just grab my water bottle while that's like that. Just wash off any excess coolant. Okay, current temperature showing 90 Fahrenheit. It should steadily increase. Since I'm from Australia, I'm going to use Celsius. And also we're going to check for leaks at the thermostat. Sorry, trying to get a bit of view here for you. Not seeing any leaks there. Just going to have a look under the car. Make sure there's no leaks coming from... There's leaks there, and that's just because of the fact that I spilt some coolant trying to pour coolant in. but we want to make sure there's no leaks coming out the back. If there's leaks coming out the back, then there's a problem with our seals still, and we might have to go back in and tear it all down and do it again. Fingers crossed we don't have to. I was just quickly checking. I thought my exhaust was still leaking, but it's just actually the sound of the plastic here that goes away. Alright, still some bubbles coming out. Let that do its thing. Temperature of 50 Celsius. I would have thought it would warm up a little bit quicker. I'm already starting to think maybe the thermostat wasn't the problem and it was actually the coolant. It's the coolant temperature sensor that might be sending false data. Probably gonna have to road test that to see. And if that's the case, then at least the coolant temperature sensor is quite easy to get out just at the back of the housing. You just need to basically get a spanner to undo the sensor. Almost 82. Thermostat will open up at 82. There's still a few bubbles that are coming out, as you can see just there, and I suspect once the thermostat opens up we'll see a big rush of bubbles as well, and I expect the coolant level to drop down. So at the moment it seems to be stagnating, sitting around 77 degrees. Probably it's not heating up quicker because we've got the heater system on. When you put the coolant through the heater system, I'm going to turn it to cold and off. When you put the coolant through the heater system, it actually helps to cool the car down. So one of the things you can do if your car overheats is you can put the heater on. Okay, so see, it's starting to go up now. 78. Keep an eye on it. You can also rev the engine up, and that will help to heat up the engine quicker. I'm just going to let it heat up by itself at idle. It just takes a lot longer, that's all. And then once the thermostat opens up and it gets above 82 degrees, I'll put the heater back on as well, just to make absolutely sure we've burped out all the bubbles. Periodically just checking down here, making sure we've got no leaks. No leaks there. That's just from the top of the radiator spilling out, completely normal. No leaks at the back. Looking good so far. Ow, that hurt. Big bubble just then. We're up at 82 degrees, guys. Here we go. There's some bubbles. See, the thermostat's opening now, so air that's trapped behind the thermostat will want to come out. This is exactly what we need. Whoa. Woo! I got coolant spraying at me. Make sure we get that off straight away. This Dexcool can corrode metal and paint, so make sure you get that off. Quick smart. Alright, and as I expected, coolant levels dropped. Exactly what we want to see, guys. Lots of bubbles coming. Perfectly normal at this stage. Let's top it back up a little bit. So I just had a bit of Dex Cool spray up into my eyes as the coolant hit onto the serpentine belt. So I quickly rinsed my eye out straight away with water. Just like that. You don't want to mess with it. Don't mess around with it. Get your face washed and your eyes washed as soon as possible. Still some bubbles coming out. Current temperature 87. Take a look now that the thermostat's opened up. Make sure that there's no leaks coming out. All looks good so far. Once again at the back of the engine here. Doesn't appear to be any leaks. Looking good. Keep burping the system. See how the level's starting to raise now? That indicates to me that all the bubbles are mostly out of the system. I was going to say out. We'll just wait a bit. But the coolant level's rising now, which means that the system's reaching a temperature where it's expanding. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to turn the heaters back on. Back onto full hot. There we go, the level's dropping. You'll see the temperature now sits at 86, so that temperature's going down even. Like I said before, when you turn the heater on, it actually helps to cool the engine down, cool the coolant system. I'm going to top it up a little bit now. What you can also do is you can grab your hoses and actually can give those a bit of a squeeze. They're going to be hot, so just be careful. Okay? Don't know if you can see it. Give those a bit of a squeeze, your heater hoses. Ugh. I'm going to turn back off the heater again and just do this sort of cycle a few times. Coolant levels rising, completely normal. Turn the heaters back on, and I'm just going to give the engine a little bit of a rev. See if we can't accelerate the coolant through the engine. See if we can get any last bubbles out. coolant levels dropped. Gonna top it back up. Alright, so the job's pretty much done. I've burped most of the air out of the system that I could find anyway. So I'm gonna basically take it for a test drive and then check it again tomorrow morning. I'll open up the radiator cap, check that the fluid's still at the appropriate level. I'll probably see if there's any more air in the system once again, basically do the whole burping procedure again, but that's pretty much it. Hope this video has been useful for you, and if you've liked it, give it a like and consider subscribing to the channel. I'll be doing some more things on the HHR, but most importantly, I just hope it's helped you to get the leak fixed. Take it easy.